Good evening, everyone. My name is Bianca Bruni, and today I'll be giving you a little insight on the Salem witch trials. Alright, so I'm going to start off with a little overview. How did the Salem witch trials start? Who was accused? How were they accused? The court's declaration, examination. How were these people told that they were a witch? Consequences for the guilty, and how the Salem witch trials eventually ended. So how it all started. Started off with King William of England. He started a war with the French colonies in America and just led from there. It did affect many states that we know today, such as New York and then places like Quebec. Eventually, refugees were sent to villages such as Salem, and that did cause a strain on the resources that they did have. Next thing, England's witch hunt. Yes, Salem did not start the witch hunt. There were other places such as England that did have a witch hunt, and it was obviously stopped. Then the smallpox epidemic. It speaks for itself. Smallpox surely would scare some people. And then fear of Native Americans. So they did have Native American neighbors in surrounding the villages, and what really feared them was that there was going to be a raid on the Salem village. And then the Puritan versus affluent community. So the Puritan community, which is they had very moral beliefs, and the affluent community, obviously, they were just rich, and yeah. And then eventually suspicions and hatred between neighbors. There was a lot of commotion going on with these people. A lot of neighbors did not like each other because of their differences. Like I said, there are two communities, so that did take part in that. Court's declaration on all of this. First thought they had was witch hunt. Yes, witch hunt. Let's start a witch hunt. That was really just a bunch of people a bunch of accusers. And the accusers started the witch hunt. Then eventually the court of Oyer and Terminar was made. This is actually a picture of the court being in progress. As you can see, everyone is pointing fingers at each other because fear of being accused. So once the accused were found, they were put in a prison. Sadly, questions later. And then over 150 people were put in prison all around Salem. And this is just a little continuation. So there was a trial that was going to be held for the accusers, and the accused really wasn't fair at all, but that's how it was held. And then the punishment was determined whether they were proven guilty. Examination process. In this picture, this girl is being pricked. She's experiencing the pricking test. The pricking test is basically where they just poke at your skin or your witch's marks, which is any birthmark on your body. They just considered to be a witch's mark. But the pricking test, they would prick anywhere on your body, preferably witch's mark, and they would just see if you bleed or not. And if you didn't bleed, and then you were proven to be a witch, if you did bleed, they're going to keep pricking you until they find someone that doesn't bleed. And then the swimming test. The swimming test is where they bounded women and men by their arms and their feet, and they were thrown into a very large body of water. If they were sinking, then that means that God accepted them. They were not a witch. And if someone floated, obviously meant that they were a witch and that God did not accept them, which is what the Puritans believed in this time. During the examination, they would have the accused read a Bible scripture. Yes, it sounds a little silly, but for them it wasn't. If you couldn't read a Bible scripture, and then you were connected with the devil, because apparently he wouldn't let you read a Bible scripture. He didn't want to hear the sound of it. That's the end of that. And then physical contact. They would have the accuser with the accused, and they would let the accuser touch the accused. If the accuser fell, and then they're a witch. And half the time, these ladies would actually just faint or do something. And That's how they would know that that person's a witch. And then listen for any incantations. Incantations, regular, a person could be talking to themselves. That's an incantation to the people of Salem. Anything that they hear, yeah. Moving on to consequences for the guilty. In the middle of Salem, there were public hangings being held. 19 people were actually deceased from this. And if they weren't deceased from public hangings, they were put in prison for the rest of their life. And eventually, a few people did die from that too, because of the harsh conditions in there. People were barely being fed, if at all, like any food was being put in their cell, mostly water.